Hey, and welcome to the second in a series of three episodes, three episodes on building an e-commerce store end to end with Sia Karamalegos. Sia is if you haven't seen the first episode, Sia is an artist, web developer, speaker, presenter. So the real deal, kind of all rounder. Sia, hey, how about you intro yourself?
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome. I'm really excited to start our second episode for serverless checkout with Stripe and Netlify and 11D. I am a web developer in Durham, North Carolina, and I do a lot of stuff for Jamstack, serverless, and web performance. And you can find more about me on sia.codes. Also, if I ever mention that I've written an article, that's where you would find the article. And I'm pretty active on Twitter. You can follow me. I'm the Green Greek. And just to pause for a second, if anyone's affected by what's going on today, I'm really sorry. And I hope this is a welcome distraction for you. But yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess so maybe exactly. So maybe I can start with repeating the overview that we had last week on what exactly this series is about. So in episode 1 last week, Sia showed us how to manage a product catalog on Stripe using products and prices. And then in this episode 2, the idea will be to leverage Netlify serverless functions and Stripe checkout sessions in order to provide a way for your customers to actually pay for your products. And then, of course, a hint for next week, there is going to be an episode on fulfilling those orders once your customers have paid using a webhook endpoint, also using Netlify serverless functions. So let's dive into this episode, which is again checkout sessions, and we're going to touch upon a lot of like different things you can do with checkout sessions, but most importantly what Sia needs from checkout in order to fulfill her business needs. Okay, so I'm gonna like remove that slide there.
I'm gonna say hey to Chris. Shout out. Sorry, one of my friends is on the.
Hey Chris. Yeah, me too. I've learned a ton.
Actually, wait, have y'all met? Because he's in New Orleans. Sorry. Anyway.
Oh wow, maybe we did. Maybe Hack Night.
We actually know each other because I used to live in New Orleans, and Matt has traveled there.
I've been to Hack Night. It's one of the great nights out in New Orleans for sure. I learned a ton as well from Sia taught me a ton. So so I guess Sia, like maybe if you wanted to like recap things on where we were.
Why don't we want to show the share screen?
Is this the right one?
Let's do the share screen first really quick.
Oh wait, of course, I'm sorry. Here we go.
Yeah, no problem. So just to give you an overview of what we're doing again, I have a website here. Happy Mardi Gras. Yes, it's in deep gras time. And I wanted to add a shop. So now I have this new shop page. And this is the live website, which actually works. I still want to do a lot of changes, like some more design work and have different pages for each product. But this product list actually comes from Stripe. That's what we built last time. And that's where the prices are coming from. And once we click buy now, it goes into Stripe checkout mode. So this is the part we're going to build today where this will get keyed off. And then our last episode will be after payment is successful. That's when we'll do the fulfillment, which is to email a file with a signed URL. So it's like an expiring URL that's private, and for them to download the files. So that's what we're actually building. So what about those steps for today? Let's look at those slides now. All right. So if you were here last time, you saw my nifty little hand-drawn
I love these
diagrams of our process. So for this part of the process where we're just starting or initiating checkout, what we do is we have, someone's on my website. This is a laptop in case you can't tell. And we have Netlify. So we're going to use Netlify serverless functions today. So I'm going to explain more about that. And then we have Stripe, of course. So these are our major players today: the browser, Netlify, Stripe. So on click for buy, what that does is it hits my API route, which is a Netlify serverless function. And the one I say to hit is to create the checkout function. And then that will initiate a Stripe checkout, which I don't know if you noticed, but that was actually on the Stripe domain. So it's all inside of Stripe. We send it the line items and it creates the checkout page. And when that is successful, we redirect to a thanks page. That's just like a standard thank you for your purchase page that tells them that their files will be coming. So we'll see that too. I didn't write on here, but if they want to exit out of here, if they click like the little arrow at the top, it actually just goes back to this page. So we'll see how all of that works inside of our serverless function. Now we're going to use Netlify functions, which are actually really fun. So you probably heard a lot about serverless functions, and each vendor has their own flavor and name for it. What's actually behind the scenes for Netlify functions is AWS Lambda. That's what it is under the hood. But I found it's like so much easier to use in Netlify because all you do is you tell Netlify to point to this folder for your serverless functions, and then they just work like routes. It's version controlled, and it's also built and deployed with your site. So you can also therefore roll it back like anything else in Netlify easily if you need to. And also to see deploy previews and things like that. So yeah, I guess that's what I just said. Automatic service discovery. So if you don't know this, they'll actually do deploy previews. So if you have a PR on your code, it will create a deploy preview that's just for that PR, which is really awesome. It's one of my favorite Netlify features. And it will do that version for the functions as well. At the moment, I should have double checked this. Last time I checked, you can write them in JavaScript, TypeScript, and Go. There might be more right now. I should have double checked this. I will say that the free tier is pretty generous. Right now, I think you can get 125,000 hits to your serverless function inside the free tier. And if you go over, I think it's like a $25 charge or something like that. So definitely check that out and see if it's right for you. But I think it's pretty generous for, for someone starting out. Then basically all of this hosting is free except for a few cents on AWS for my files. But yeah. So how does it all work together? It's a file-based config. So in the root of my repo, I'll have a Netlify TOML, which we kind of saw last time. And in here is where you define your functions folder. So my functions folder, I just say functions. A lot of the tutorials will have they'll call this like Netlify /functions, but that makes me really confused because so what you do is you would write it in a folder that's function/hello, but then you have to access it with .netlify /functions/hello. And I just get confused if there's like an additional Netlify in there. So I just simplify it to just functions, but that's me. You don't have to do that. Yeah, and they just work magically like a route. All right, so that's my slides for today. No more slides. We're just going to decode. All right.
So I'll jump back to the other,
yeah.
Well, maybe in the meantime, actually, maybe let's check for questions first. Is there anything around that Sia can answer? Because I'm only learning about Netlify functions, but it's pretty cool.
I don't see any yet. But feel free to put your questions in the chat, like even while we're talking. And then when we pause for questions, we'll go back and read those and answer them if we need to.
For sure. Yeah, and so in the meantime, what I guess I'll share this screen and maybe just kind of key up some of the really perennial and core features that you get when using Stripe Checkout. And some of them are listed here on this overview page. And it's really, really important stuff. For example, I think PCI compliance probably is one of the most important things. If you're ever dealing with credit card information, as soon as that credit card information hits your personal or your business's server, you suddenly have a really you've got PCI compliance burden, which means that it's a very regular, things like regular security checks around how you're handling that card information, and it's all very regulated. But the great thing is if you use, also with Elements, but especially with Stripe Checkout, it takes all of that PCI compliance burden, or a lot of it, away from you. So it's completely secure, and you just don't have to worry about it. Checkout is SCA ready. So if you're not sure about what SCA is, it's very important in Europe. It's called Strong Customer Authentication. It means that in Europe, the banks will want, especially for online purchases, will want authentication of those transactions. So, for example, you'll pay for something online, you might be sent a push notification or an SMS, or you might be sent to the bank's website to actually authenticate that purchase. And that came into effect, oh gosh, I guess officially, I think in 2019, but it's being rolled out more and more at the moment. So Stripe Checkout takes care of that for you, so your customers can authenticate that 3D Secret Challenge right there in checkout. And what else is worth maybe touching on? Yeah, like it's optimized for lots of different screen sizes. So I think it's pretty much common knowledge these days that folks do a lot of shopping on their mobile devices. So that means being able to check out on your phone is really important. And of course, not of course, but the great thing is checkout being mobile ready, you also get Apple Pay and Google Pay. You get those digital wallets out of the box with zero effort whatsoever. So I think it's in Italy, for example, is one of the countries where mobile wallets and one-click checkout is just super popular. So just a few of the things and a few of the core features that you get straight out of the box, no effort when using Stripe Checkout. So yeah, we'll touch on a lot more later, but I'll hand back to Sia to get cracking.
All right. Yeah, so let's look at our code. So where we left off last time was that let's take a look at this serverless function. It was basically a hello world serverless function in Netlify. So remember I mentioned that Netlify TOML. Let me go back to that and just review this. But in this Netlify TOML is a bunch of Netlify config stuff, but my functions, it tells the build that my functions are in a folder called functions. So now I have a folder called functions and this function in it. And this is what every serverless function will look like in Netlify. You always have an exports.handler equals async function. And the two parameters you always get are event and context. Those are always passed. So we're going to take a look at what those are. I'm going to console, I can't even type today, console.log, and let's log event and context. So we see what it already gives us. And then what you always have to return at a minimum is a status code. And then there are other things you can return. Most commonly the body, there's also headers. There's a lot of different things you can return. So I'm going to save that and let's go ahead and run the server. So I do Netlify dev. I could do the long version of this. Netlify dev should start my dev server. And remember that this injects my environment variables too. So the ones that I have set in the UI inside of Netlify, which is really awesome. So this is my shop. This is my website, and here's my shop. And then at some point, here's event and context. Because right now, I should have reviewed this too. Why is it even showing me that? Because I did this quick little script on the front end on the shop page, that an inline script that just does a fetch really quick so that we can see what's going on when we do this.
And so it's the idea, could you touch upon what are you going to post to this route?
Oh yeah, definitely. First I'm going to kind of explain how the functions work, but then the next step will be to actually convert that to something that's useful for our shop, because this isn't useful. This is just hello world stuff. But the event gives you the path. So this is the path for my session. I could have a redirect that makes this an API route, which would be cool, but we don't have to do that. Mm-hmm. There's query string params, headers. So all the headers, including the refer, which is important for our next step. And then a bunch of other things. There's the body, if you sent a body, which we will. And then we have the context, which is some more information. I don't use this as often, but I think if you had session information, it would go in there. I should actually, I do have another tutorial. I'm going to drop a link on the YouTube side in case you want to get started with serverless functions that goes more in depth than, you know, what I can really cover here. I mean, not super in depth, but all right. So let's go back to here. And okay. So now we saw what was an event and context. We don't really want to do this anymore. So I'm just going to delete that because you know what's in there now. Sorry, my dog is making noises back there. It's not me, I promise. All right. So we no longer want this script. So we were just checking to see how things are working, but that's not how we're going to trigger checkout. How we're going to trigger checkout is actually with those buttons, right? So when someone clicks on this button, I need to send that product ID so that I can then create line items that we can then send to checkout. And so if I look at, these are how my products are rendered, and I already have this code in here. And I'm going to use just HTML forms. I'm not going to use a client-side fetch because I don't think we need JavaScript to do something that forms can do by default. And so what I should do, because I don't have my redirect in here, I do need to change this to .netlify/functions so that it will hit the correct route. So this says for my form action, hit this serverless function with a post. And then I have this hidden input. It's not on the front end, but what it contains is the price ID. And so when we do the button click, it does a form submit, essentially. So now we need to go to our function and start initiating that, that function. And I got to look at my notes so I don't forget anything. All right. So the first thing we need to do in our function is actually, before we do anything or like anything major, let's see if we can grab that price ID out, right? Because we need that first. So why don't we just do that as the first step? Mm-hmm. So inside my exports handler, I can do this is actually, let's just console log the event again. I should have left that in there. So now when we click a button, oh, and I forgot because of what we're doing with our function, it's actually going to a page and just saying hello world. But let's look. The reason why our console logs are over here is because this is a serverless function. So just think of it as a server. So the console logs are not in the browser because it's not a client-side issue. It is a server-side. So if we go here, we want to look for that price ID. And that price ID should be in the params, which I don't see it there. Oh, there it is, in the body. Yeah. All right. Which is... Oh, yeah. Okay, so now we're going to use, sorry, I should have reviewed my notes some more. So let's get that Stripe ID out. So I can say const params, because I think of these as params when they come in through. And we're going to use an API that's the URL search params. It took me a long time to get this to work because JSON.parse doesn't work here. And I'm not entirely sure. It might be because I'm not doing a client-side fetch and instead I'm doing like just an actual post. So that might be it. That might have nothing to do with it, but I haven't had the time to like research that. But so we're going to use the URL search params API, which you can look up the docs on MDN. So let's now, instead of console log event, let's console log those params and see if we get them in a format that looks useful. So I was just making sure it reloaded everything. Let's go back to the actual shop. By now, let's see. Look, we got an instance of URL search params, and these are the values inside of that instance. So the way we get those out is we then do const. We want price ID. So I know it's weird to see snake case in here, but I don't want to change it. Because I feel like it's confusing if I start switching between snake and camel case.
Yep.
So params.get price ID. So this is all part of the URL search params API. So let's copy that there and let's see if that worked. It reloaded the function. Let's click one of these buttons again. And now we have price ID equals this long string, and this string is the ID inside of Stripe.
Yep.
All right. So yay, we have something to work with, but we need more.
So maybe I can field a question in the meantime that's come in.
Sure.
So Muthu asks, like, how do we how do you go about displaying Google Pay in Stripe checkout? And there's kind of like two simple answers to that. You can literally just switch it on in your dashboard settings. So if you go to your payment method section in the dashboard, there's a section called wallets, and you can just like opt in to have it on. And then when a user lands on the Stripe hosted surface, which is Stripe checkout, if they have a valid card in their wallet, be it for Apple Pay or Google Pay, then those options will display. So essentially, it's automatic. You just need to turn them on in the dashboard.
Awesome. All right. So while he was mentioning that, I went ahead and grabbed my Stripe test key. If we have time at the end of this, I do want to come back to this because there was like a gotcha in terms of API keys because I was trying to vary by environment, but that's not critical to what we're doing right now. So I'm going to leave that on the table and we can come back to it later. But I'm just going to grab my API key because then we need to instantiate Stripe, which const Stripe equals require Stripe. So Stripe is a dependency of my project. So if I go to my package.json, we should see Stripe down here in the dependencies. It's in a dev dependency. It should technically be in the dependencies. I don't know how that happened, but it's still working.
That makes sense.
So require Stripe, and then we immediately give it the API key.
Yeah. Would this work if you put this require outside of the serverless function? Like.
Yeah, actually, this part should work fine. I think so. I put it in here because. I mean, I don't know.
Because like, I just wonder, will it run every time the function runs?
Well, yeah, the whole thing runs every time the function runs, right?
Yeah. Okay. Just thinking.
Yeah. Actually, that would be a good thing to test. So like I think we're basically making a hypothesis that it will be more efficient to bring this outside.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that maybe, I don't, it's a good question, right? Because whether it kind of like, it persists over requests. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, because I don't think it's supposed to. Like, that's the nature of serverless functions. They just kind of disappear when they're not running. Interesting. Okay, so we have Stripe, and the other thing we will need is the refer. So let's get that refer, because remember, we want to. When someone hits cancel, we want them to go back to the page that they were on when they started this. So I'm going to say const refer. I don't know if that's how you spell it. Equals event dot headers dot refer. I guess it is because that's what I have typed over here. So hopefully we have all these things now, and now we can do stuff with them. So we are going to create a checkout session. So we're going to call it session equals, and now it's the Stripe stuff.
Yeah.
Wait, Stripe dot checkout dot sessions dot create. I should probably drop the docs here, or I don't know if you wanted to talk while I type this.
Yeah. Let's see. So, I can drop a link into the chat for the API for that. Because there is a lot of options in the meantime for creating checkout sessions. Let's see here. That would be this. We're gonna use, like, the most appropriate settings for your business, and then we can always touch on the theoretical stuff that could be used as we go.
So Focus Otter just mentioned that it should be cached while the function is warm. So I think it's safe to put it there.
Super cool. Okay, good to know.
We'll see. We'll test it out.
Yeah.
All right. Most, like, other constant things I do put up here, like definitely the API key can be up here, but it was like other things, like, I don't know. I feel like it should be fine. All right, so we have session, and like the key thing here is to send the line items. So our line items include includes a price ID and a quantity, essentially.
Yep.
So price is going to be that price ID. And then I don't have a like shopping cart functionality yet. We were talking maybe longer term, we could queue up a second series of videos to do shopping cart functionality. Right now, it's basically you click for one item at a time. So it's always going to be a default of one.
Yeah.
For this version, for our MVP.
Yeah. And like, well, I'll show the at least the docs later. That there is the option to add on adjustable line items, so that the user, when they're checking out, if they're buying a bag of ground coffee, they can say, hey, give me 10 of those, or instead of just the one. So, but we'll touch on that later.
All right. So the other thing we need is mode is payment. Do you want to say what that means?
Yeah. So basically, checkout has essentially 3 modes that it can work in. So that they are payment, setup, and subscription. Payment means you're taking a oh, hey Mike.
Hey Mike. All our friends are here.
So we've got 3 modes that we can work in: payment, setup, and subscription. Payment is it does what it says on the tin. You're taking payments. Setup means if you're setting up a payment method, which means that for example, let's say you run a restaurant, and it's during the pandemic, and you need to make sure that you take a deposit for somebody booking a table so they don't cancel out on you. You can basically use checkout to collect their card information without taking a payment at that moment, but taking essentially the permission to charge that card off session at a later date, right? So that's obviously really, really useful. And then subscription, again, quite self-explanatory. Checkout will allow you to create subscriptions for your business. So if you've got like a SaaS business where you're charging your customers, in a recurring cadence, daily, monthly, what have you, you can do that with checkout as well. In this case, Sia is taking a one-time payment, so therefore mode payment.
All right. So then we give it our success URL and cancel URL.
Yep.
So my success URL, which I can't just do like one of these, I don't think. I don't know. I think we need a real URL there, like the full URL. So that full URL, at least that is live. That is a thanks page. So if I go to my shop and just go, or my website, just go to /thanks. I've already built this generic thank you page. And so what I want to do is put that URL in. And then we need our cancel URL, which is going to be that referrer. Like I said that too. I'm enunciating too much. I try to enunciate more when I talk, especially for people that aren't from the US or the UK or don't have English as a first language. But sometimes I probably sound funny to those who are. All right. I think that's all for creating the session. So we send our line items, we set the mode as payment, and we have a success URL and a cancel URL. I will say there's a way to customize that thank you page with the order. And I have a URL actually in my notes over here. But I was like, it'd be nice if they actually got some details there. But just know that you can do that here. And oh, and I should share a link to the to this repo. I never shared it. I forgot. I'm sorry, y'all. But I created a separate branch for all of our live streams because I'm going to continue developing on this clearly. But I want you to have like, a frozen thing that is exactly the code we did in the live stream. And I've just posted that in YouTube, which there's a time difference. So actually I posted it before I just said that. Time is weird. Timey-wimey. So you can always check out that code there. So you'll be able to have these links that I drop into here as well. There's another thing we should do is do a try catch in case there's like an error. So this isn't fully safe. Add try catch. Right. So now we need to figure out what we're going to return from this function, right? Because the session itself is going to when we start this session, it's actually going to a different web page entirely, but our function still needs to return something for Netlify to know that it has ended. So what we're going to do is a status code of 303, which I already forgot what it is. I think you know it offhand though.
There's, oh gosh, isn't there like certainly like oh gosh, what's the terminology? I've forgotten. But this actually was really news to me because like when I was like learning about this for this set of sessions, I always thought of serverless functions as like literally like it takes data and then it will return you a value, right? A function that lives in the cloud. But actually you can do quite more web server-y things with serverless functions. And that really blew me away when you showed that to me.
Yeah, it's basically a server. It's just you just do it function by function instead of like the entire server. And then so we return status code 303 and a header that gives that session.url. So when we instantiate this session, it's await stripe.checkout.session.create, and this actually returns a session URL, or inside of this object, we have a property called URL. So we send that with the 303, which is like some sort of redirect, basically, I think. Maybe you can Google it. HTTP code 303. The redirects don't link to the newly updated resources, but to another page. Cool. Which makes sense because we're basically going to an entirely different page, and then we're relying on Stripe to handle our routing after that.
Yep.
So some more kind of weird timey-wimey stuff. Space and time are not the same in this universe. We're getting a little weird today. So I think it's ready to test out. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it looks pretty solid. Yeah, quantity that's required, your cancel and success URLs, they're required, a price obviously, and the mode, I think for, at least for the minimum required attributes for a checkout, I think that looks great.
Let's try it. I don't know why I always refresh. I'm like, just in case I did it wrong. Let's click it. Cross fingers. It looks like it's working. Yay.
Looks great.
Beautiful. So let's first check this cancel. This is how you cancel, is you click this like back thing with the arrow at the top, which is nice. So it went back to the page that we were on. Eventually I will have an actual dedicated page for each of these so I can add more pictures and more caveats that you can't return a file download. So Unfortunately for these, don't take returns, weird stuff like that. Okay, so let's do this. Let's actually try to purchase it and see if it goes to the thanks page. Oh, wait, what just happened? Oh, no. Demo gods are failing now. Because now I'm dumb. Did y'all see what I just did? I made these links, but these links don't go anywhere because eventually there are links to the product pages and I'm clicking them wondering why nothing is happening. And that's because the links don't do anything. What I need to click is buy now. So please don't judge me. Let's actually try to buy this. Take this off screen so my email isn't on here. I'll put this is not my email address. Sia, google.com. Oh, yay. At least you can't really tell what's going on with those. They last 4 digits, hopefully. I forgot like all of my saved stuff is in here. 12, 23. Harry, my dog. Karamalegos. Tactic. Oh, yay. Everything's on here. Your email is incomplete.
Oh boy.
Pay.
Okay.
So it should process. That was all the test stuff, and it went to the thank you page. So yay, it all worked.
Nice. So there's a question here from Chris. I think you can't. I think once you're in payment mode, you're really taking one-time payments, and the same for subscriptions. I think you can actually like mix those modes. Like once you're out, if you're doing a custom integration with billing, I do believe that's possible. But like I think using subscriptions, I think you can kind of like mix those modes as you go. But really good question, yeah. Sorry, Sia, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine. So that was the actual code for the function. I didn't know if we wanted to. We can definitely take more questions.
If they're there.
I could talk about how, or like basically the gotchas with how to manage the API keys.
Yeah, for sure.
Why don't we do that? Because that's like something we need in real life. So
what Future definitely wants to hear.
Who does? Sorry. Oh, my dogs. Yeah, because they just told us. Sorry, a delivery truck just drove by. They're like, "You bad UPS man." So Netlify has this. Oh, did I just close the page I needed? Sorry, 1 second. Oh, Miss Grunty over there. So, in Netlify, if I were in the build, we have basically 2 processes going on here. Every time I push code up to Netlify, it runs a build. And there are some default environment variables that you have at that point that tell you where you are, like what your context is. So what we would think of like production versus development versus like a deploy preview. They have all these different environments that you can access. But once we go into a serverless function, it's more runtime. It's not build time. And so we don't have access to those. And so it took me a long time to figure out why my context wouldn't work before. So what we want to do is we're going to add some stuff up here. So the way it would normally work is you could say environment, because I think of it as environment, but they call it context. So I can say process.m.context. And this is something given to you by default inside of Netlify, but not in serverless functions. We have to inject it. So that's where I add this plugin. Actually, do I have it in here yet or no? Yeah. So if you add this plugin, what it can do is it can inject some of those environment variables. So you would install it in your package JSON, and don't npm install stuff live because we never know how that's going to go. But it's already there. And then what I need to do in my Netlify TOML is change it. So I'm gonna have to kill my server for this to restart with these changes. But but I need to add in, I'm just going to copy paste this. Oops. So this is how I would add like any plugin. I would add in a plugin line. I don't really understand TOML. I think I feel like I hear Jason Langsdorff. He has a great live stream called Learn with Jason. Always complain about TOML, but I don't ask me what this means. That's a TOML thing. But for plugins, maybe it means that this can be multiple things. I have no idea. But the package, this is the package name. And then this is a thing you have to add that says, hey, include that context stuff that automatically comes from Netlify. So this basically says in my runtime, now I also have access to this stuff, not just at build time. So hopefully that context will work here. What I could do is actually, let's just do the things. So now I'm going to change this API key to be keyed off of environment. So I'm going to say environment is not equal to production. Wow, that is not production. It's like when your fingers, it's like the off by one alignment of your fingers while you're typing. So is that true? I always ask, I do that. What do you call this thing?
Ternary.
Ternary. I always ask it like it's an actual question.
Yeah,
I'm like, is that true? If so, then we want to do this. If not, then we want to do the actual live key. Of course, you can just like skip all of this until you're actually ready to go live. But I personally like my environments to automatically choose like test versus secret. So this is Stripe, not test key, but I'll just add that. Secret key. So hopefully this still works. But like I said, because we edited that Netlify TOML, I should go ahead and kill my server and restart it. And let's go to our page. This is, I need to go back. Or I need to go to my localhost version. That's actually the live page.
Yeah, that was like where the redirection was, right? From yeah, cool.
So shop, and then don't click these links. Click these links. Which, yay, it still works. And then, of course, I would want to test that in production to make sure it didn't say test mode up here.
Yeah.
And I will say I am a fan of the descriptive errors for Stripe, because like when you accidentally try to buy in production mode but using the test card or the reverse, it will usually give you a message that says exactly that. Like you used a test mode thing on a production ID.
So maybe actually, since you were mentioning those like redirection URLs, there is kind of an interesting or an important aspect to what you do with those, and it comes up a lot, or at least, or when I was on support engineering, it used to come up a lot where folks would like want to redirect to their success URL and then fulfill their order based on that redirection, and that really makes a lot of sense. Like when you know, or at least it initially makes
like
a lot
of sense. Logic, you think it.
Yeah, like you're like, oh, cool. Like I got to a certain page on my site, and great. Like that means somebody paid for something, and so I'm going to fulfill that order. But in fact, like we recommend against that because you absolutely can do that, but we recommend against it because, for example, during that redirection back to your success URL, there can be network errors, or it could be that the user themselves decided to like, you know, just close the browser. And that's, I guess we generally call that just drop off, which means that like you will have a payment, but you might not really know, you know, who to fulfill that order for, or, you know, under what cases. And that kind of hints at like a different way of fulfilling orders, which of course we're going to cover. It hints at the next episode, really. But I suppose what I'm getting at is the best practice is definitely don't fulfill orders based on that browser redirection, but wait until you hear about that from a real notification from Stripe using a webhook endpoint. And that's kind of like teasing the next episode a little bit. But yeah, so just a note on those redirection URLs.
Exactly. Yeah, I naively thought, oh, you know, when this session is complete, it's done. But that's not dependable. We actually need to wait until Stripe says the payment is complete.
And like also like taking into consideration, you know, like non relative immediate payment notification payment methods like cards, right? So with a card, you know, when you pay for something online, you can be relatively sure that it's relatively immediate, that you know, if it succeeded, it's going to be, you know, it'll succeed quickly. Whereas, for example, here in Europe, you know, online transactions only really like cards only really account for 40% of online transactions in Europe, right? So folks in the Netherlands, they love to pay with Ideal. You know, all over Europe, I lived in Germany for a long time, so in Germany, SEPA debit, and SEPA debit takes, I think, can take up to 14 days. Generally it doesn't, but can take up to 14 days to actually clear. So like you know, somebody could purchase something on your website, and like 14, you know, X days later, you know, you'll get a notification. So, you know, relying on that redirect is just not going to work in that case. And then there's like a ton of other kind of what we call delayed notification payment methods. So it's really essential in today's kind of like global payments landscape to be able to react to like asynchronicity and things that happen, you know, days down the line, in order to like know you got paid, and B, know that you need to like fulfill an order or like grant access to your subscription service or what have you. So yeah.
Oh, Focus Otter has a good question.
Yeah, let's put it up. Any thoughts around having your product source of truth being Stripe versus your own database? It's kind of, it depends. Like, I think there's like a lot of folks who use Stripe as a source of truth, you know, for all of their objects and and their data, especially kind of folks who are going down the no code route. You know, they want to have like store as much stuff in Stripe as they can. That being said, I think there's a lot of, you know, I think there's a lot of sense, like if you can, there's a lot of sense in having, you know, caching data on your side in your own database, because ultimately it means that you're going to save a lot of time, you know, doing offline processing, or if you need to look something up in the API, you know, which might take, you know, n milliseconds, maybe, you know, maybe more, depending on if you're doing a list call where you're like grabbing a lot of data. Yeah, certainly you're gonna, you know, you're gonna reap benefits if you actually cache a lot of stuff in your own database. So it kind of really depends on your, you know, how much technical lift you want to make, what kind of business you're running, and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's like there's kind of like both models definitely supported, if you like.
I will say I'll probably end up longer term doing a hybrid version, because I'll want multiple photos and I only see one location for a photo. But also it's not showing here, but I actually switched to using Cloudinary for photos, because I'm so used to using that already for how I do my images in all of my websites. Because I've made some short codes in 11D that work really well. And so then I can have like AVIF, and, you know, I can do source sets, so I can make those images as small as possible. But I also want multiple images for products and not just one. And then the other thing I will say is that, although of course inside of 11D, I can have a global data thing that just acts like a database, but really isn't a database, or it's like a read-only database. But longer term, I'll have to figure out like an actual updatable, at least a key value store, maybe a database for inventory. So when I start doing physical items, I don't have an unlimited supply of, for example, like stickers or something. So I need to make sure it cuts off, you know, and you know, says like out of stock when it's out of stock.
Like that's an excellent example. Like, you know, like kind of, you know, there's this concept of having metadata on objects at Stripe. Whether that's kind of like a performance database over time, depending on the scale of your business, is like, you know, definitely would be questionable. So like so if you have like inventory management, that sounds like something that you would want to like really have, you know, granular control over, and in a very fast way as well on like on your side. So yeah, that's an excellent example.
I will say some of the speed stuff is not as important because I'm doing pre-rendering. So the only time I'm actually hitting Stripe is when I do a build. So when I build is when it does a fetch for all the products, and then it just renders all the pages. I could probably longer term set up, I bet there's a way to set up a webhook anytime there's like a new or a change to a product to automatically trigger a build inside of Netlify.
Yeah,
because I've done that with other things. I have some GitHub actions that, for example, trigger rebuilds for my for my website periodically, basically like a cron job.
Yeah.
So you could like, I'm guessing there's a way to kind of set that up, not as a cron job, but like, you know, anytime I update, or like in a CMS, I update Insanity for the 11D meetup webpage. Whenever we do an update there, it will automatically trigger a rebuild in Netlify. Of course, if you had a ton of updates often, that would not be a good way to go. But because it doesn't happen often, I think it's actually a good way to go and more efficient.
That's super cool. Yeah. Maybe then, maybe I can do, since we're kind of like we you know, the checkout system you've built is, you know, let's say perfect for your business. Do you want to maybe we've got about 10 minutes left. So how about like, would you fancy checking out like how you'd change branding for your checkout system?
Let's do that. I don't know if you spied it earlier, but I did do some. I did make some. I went into checkout. What was it? Dashboard.
Yeah, dashboard Stripe.com. Yeah.
And let's make sure we go into test mode. So I think it's here in settings. I added my, let's go to the live shop so you can see what I'm talking about. Sia. I have too many Sia websites. I didn't grab all of them, but I grabbed some of them. I got Sia.studio and Sia.codes before anyone else did, but it's so hard. What was I saying? Okay, so if I try to buy these coloring pages, what is new now is that I actually have a return policy, which I added. I didn't tell you that because I wanted people to be clear that you can't return a digital file. Like it's like toothpaste. You can't put it back in the tube. You've already gotten it. So I added that, which is here in the dashboard also. So what I did is I went to settings and then checkout and payment links. And then what I did, we're going to talk about the branding stuff, but I think what I did is down here, display your refund and return policy. Nice. And then I have an FAQ page that talks about it in more detail as well, which has the link in there.
Yeah, super nice.
We can actually, I think this is what you were saying to do. Go to the branding settings.
Yeah, because I think that's like a really nice thing to be able to like align your branding with checkout.
So like these colors, I could use like this color, which is, oh God, we need to change this probably to a hex code.
That's cool. I didn't see that before.
Oh yeah, it's actually how I do a lot of changing colors. Sorry, this is random now because I always have the inspector open. This is one of my favorite features because you can switch between all the color codes. So say, for example, you have a contrast problem. What you can do is you can come in here. If you change it to HSLA, it's a lot easier to, you keep the hue constant, but you change the lightness. So like now I'm making it darker and then I'm making it lighter. Cool. So now I need to, no, I already had it copied, but it's it's cool. Sorry. Aside. So I think that's a lighter color.
Right. You've got your brand and your accent.
Because it's just this thing, although it's a little.
There you go.
Yeah, the accent color. I'm not actually a big fan of my accent color at the moment, but we'll still do it.
Okay.
Ooh, so many things. Let's do this. It also has fonts. Oh yeah, it's all right. I feel like it should be flipped. This is not a very high contrast.
Yeah.
I wonder if I should just flip it or actually just do both. Oops.
It's like hours of fun, just like tinkering.
Yeah, right. Your fault we started this. I should have a better accent color, but
no, this is cool because honestly, like, you know, as like being a sport engineer, this is the stuff that I never touched, right? Like I knew it was there, but like it would never actually change it. Yeah.
So what I would do is I need a better, someone's good at color stuff. Wait, stop. Why is this? Okay. Sorry, I was hitting escape and nothing was happening. That's why I kept yelling at it. Someone's good at design. I need like more of a less close color to this so that I can have a better accent color. but we'll still change this at least. We'll change this one.
Nice. Yeah.
We'll leave that one the same. It doesn't look right, but it's fine.
Yeah. Well, it's there for you to change if you need it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I should add an icon, a logo. I don't really have one now. I mean, I have a favicon, but that's too tiny.
Yeah.
And then
that's
there's
cool. Like, yeah. And so
wait,
maybe
where's the font thing? I saw it the other day.
I think it's right there. If you go up, it's customized into the right of your if you scroll down,
this.
there's like,
oh goodness. I don't
oh yeah, no, that's a thing.
Fine. Okay.
So
I'm like, if my password doesn't show up immediately, then I don't know what it is. Okay.
But just to let you know, right there, like within the preview pane, you can see use custom styling for font border. So like that's where you would change, let's say, you know, you can change your input fields to like be a pill.
Oh, here. Sorry.
That's the one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they should just put it on the left.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder because it doesn't whether it applies to all of the different because there's like customer portal which you can customize. That's a fair point though. Really
yeah, like right now, actually on my website, I'm using system fonts and except for my like headers, which is Josephine Sands. But if I had chosen one of these other fonts, then I could, you know, I could change it to like, well, I should have done something that's more obvious. Open Sans is so generic.
Comic Sans.
Wait, is that in here? Oh
I'm
my
joking,
god, that would be hilarious.
I'm joking.
Have I seen Titilium before? Or is that just another sans serif? It looks a little bit like Georgia. Montserrat is kind of a fun one.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
All right.
Different.
So maybe if I could take like literally take a minute to like rattle through a few of the other things that you know that might apply to your to folks using checkout for their business and maybe also to yours Sia eventually, but let's see if I can add to stream here. So we got about 3 minutes left. I'll be really quick. This is the overview of your checkout. We already saw that. We also touched on being able to make your line items adjustable. So Sia, like if you wanted to let people like in a way maybe buy licenses to your art, right? So like they could say like give me 5 licenses to to use a certain pattern or something like that, then adjustable line item quantities would be perfect for that. And subscription upsells, right? So that's available now. It's a really new feature. So let's say you're selling like a pattern a month, right? And somebody's paying a recurring price every month, and you now have the option to say, you know what, pay me for a whole year and I'll give you a break on the price, right? So like a pretty normal, when you paying for your Netflix or what have you, or 1Password, that you'll get a break on a yearly price. So that's available as well to you through checkout. This is a really cool thing. So let's say somebody actually put something in the cart, and they decide, like, they kind of abandon they abandon it and just like, no, I'm gonna think about it some other time. And you can actually configure that you get a notification after an expiry time, and then you can actually go back and mail that person and say, hey, don't you want to have my beautiful designs? So really useful as well. A really useful thing that like you don't have to build yourself. You just kind of like get it for free out of the box. Another big one, collecting taxes, right? So Stripe Tax, built here in Europe. And that went live last year. So literally with one line of code and a little bit of configuration in your dashboard. So let's say you have tax obligations in, the States or here. You can actually calculate and collect tax automatically for whatever types of products that you're selling. And then, you can remit those taxes to your tax authority. Shipping, if you're doing, if you're selling physical goods, you can collect you can collect people's shipping addresses and give them shipping rates, be it standard, express, what have you. And then automatic payment methods. So I think maybe this is where, for example, Chris was asking, I think, let's see, payment methods. Oh no, Muthu was asking about payment methods. So we have this thing called automatic payment methods, right? So with checkout, you can essentially say, show me automatic pay, or show me everything that I can use automatic payment methods when you're creating your checkout session. All you need to do is come in and say, like, either hit this button, mash that one, turn them all on, or select the ones you want to pay with. We're right on the hour. I'm so sorry for taking all that time right at the end. And I'll stop sharing. So like all there is to say is, like, I think mainly, or essentially, thank you so much, Sia, for sharing your expertise with us about how you used serverless functions and checkout. And thanks to everybody who joined us and asked such really good questions. So yeah, that's my thank yous.
No, thank you. This was great. And I know Focus Otter had a question on subscription upsells, but it's fine.
Oh yeah,
we didn't talk about that, but those look really cool. I definitely want to try that once I have a shopping cart and I can actually add more items.
Yeah, Focus Otter, you're bang on. So let's say you've got a subscription that costs like €10 a month, and you decide to offer your user, instead of 120 for a year, give it to them for 100 a year. You get that money up front, and everyone's happy. So that's the subscription upsell. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll let you get on with your day. Oh, please join us in the next episode next Thursday.
Yes.
Or Friday, I think. Sorry.
And then we'll